What are you making?
I'm mixing up a stew to give corporate a different view. Have a taste. Welcome to the Corporate Kitchen. I'm your host, Tiger, and today on the menu is compliance. This is one of those functions that no one truly knows where they sit. You may not even meet these people in person, but everyone interacts with them, and they're arguably one of the most critical functions there are in corporate America. Every industry has them. Some people are fans of them. Other people are not so much fans of them. When you enter the corporate America world, you're going to have to deal with your compliance department, and they are there to help you. They're honestly the best, worst position out there. The best because their job is purely CYA. And it's not there, it's your behind that they're trying to make sure is covered and make sure that the company itself is not exposed to any risk. But then it's the worst thing because they can they can be really, really strict, specific, and searching something through a fine-tooth comb is not even an exaggeration with the work that they do. So let's dive into compliance. According to the Merriam-Webster, the definition of compliance as a noun is 1A, the act or process of complying to a desire, demand, proposal, or regimen. 1B, conformity in fulfilling official requirements. 2, a disposition to yield to others. 3, the ability of an object to yield elastically when a force is applied, flexibility. Wow, okay, I'm learning something new again. I didn't realize flexibility was related to compliance, but sure. For the purposes of this episode, honestly, 1A or B could work. Again, 1B was conformity to and fulfilling official requirements. The key there is the requirements portion. However, I think 1A is what we should go with. 1A is the act or process of complying to a desire, demand, proposal, or regimen. Now, we kind of got the word in definition, right? Complying, compliance. So let's break down complying. Complying as a verb is 1, to conform, submit, or adapt as to a regulation or to another's wishes as required or requested. 2, obsolete. So if we put in the definition of complying to 1A of compliance, we get the act or process of conforming, submitting, or adapting as required or requested to a desired, demand, proposal, or regimen. That sounds like compliance in a nutshell. And there are a couple portions of that definition that we truly need to break down so that we can understand it from a one-on-one perspective. And I want to start at the back end of it. It said to a desire, demand, proposal, or regimen. Those are 4 different things. They sound similar, but they're truly a mix of different things. And if we were to group them, the category that we can say they all fall in is some type of requirement. At the end of the day, the desire, the demand, proposal, or the regimen is initiating a requirement to someone else. The fact of the matter is, no one truly knows all the requirements. It's the first takeaway here. No one truly knows all the requirements. It's very interesting listening to people discuss laws, listening to people talk about requirements, because there are different interpretations of what is right versus wrong, where that gray area is. If we think about our United States laws, a lot of them come up to interpretation where some people interpret it a little bit left of the core spectrum, and some people are to the right of the core spectrum of what is assumed to be right. No one truly knows, and that's okay. Again, that work of interpretation to figure out what the requirements are, luckily is not even done, is not your job. It's done for you by your compliance department, which is why they're one of the best, worst things for you ever. They're very similar to, I don't even know if I can say the name of the place, but it's very similar to the very popular cookie place. We all know which one I'm talking about, and we're talking about the 1,000 calorie cookie place. They're the best worst thing for you. On the surface, what they do, you know, it really helps you. I mean, from the cookie perspective, they take care of your sweet tooth. They provide a very nourishing feeling for you. You break it down on the back end of it, it's where it gets a little muddy. If you knew the amount of sugar that they put into it, you're like, I don't know about that, right? Just like if you knew how they break down the requirements and understood what the requirements are in order to develop what's going to be the compliance requirement for the company, you may not agree with it. A lot of times you're going to find stuff where compliance has a finding for the activity that you did. They want you to make the change, and in your mind, you believe that you conform with what you're supposed to conform. You know the requirements yourself. I'm in conformance to it, and they're going to say no, you have to change it, and yes, you do because they're the compliance department. So it gets a little fishy when you break it down, just like with a cookie too. When you break down that type of cookie, and you're looking at all the ingredients, how much of certain ingredients they're using, it will make you raise an eyebrow. But does that stop you from buying the cookie? No. Just like if you were to break down how your compliance department is interpreting regulations, that shouldn't stop you from listening to your compliance department. If you're going to buy the cookie, then you need to buy into your compliance department. That's all I'm saying. And it's very confusing. I mean, it's like finance, engineering, where you're taking a certain language. I mean, yes, it is in English, but you're taking a language the way that it's written and trying to make something that's written very subjectively and make it objective. It's just difficult to do, and it's written so poorly sometimes too, where the person writing it clearly didn't know what they wanted to say. It just sounded good. It's like they're writing like before was is. And in their head, it sounds good. And then you write it on paper, and it's like that. What? Like, no, it's not even interpreted the same way that you thought of it in your head. On top of that, the English language is not the hardest language to learn out there. However, it is very difficult, and it be kicking some people's butts all the time. Like the people that don't know the difference between there and there. Is it affected or affected? Right? And that comes with the building of requirements too, where they did what they thought was right at the time. I mean, going back to the cookie, it's like, are we using granulated sugar or are you using brown sugar? Which one do you use? They're both sugars, but they both do two totally different things in relation to building a cookie. Gotta know which was which. And when people make these requirements, they're like, hey, we're gonna use the brown sugar to make this cookie. And you're like, yeah, I don't know about that one. I think we should use a different sugar. But if that's the requirement, that's what you're gonna have to go with. Again, no one truly knows all of them, but your compliance department will take the best effort in order to streamline, standardize what conformity looks like to requirements and regulations for the whole company, not just for you, for the whole company. It should be consistent. It's sometimes not, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. It should be consistent in reviews of each person's submission. So if they're reviewing my work and then tomorrow they review your work, it should be the same type of review, same answers, same feedback. Not always. I mean, it happens, but generally speaking, it is consistent. I mean, same with your cookie. It is generally consistent cookie to cookie. There are some variations. This one has a little bit more chocolate chips than yours. Does it make it significantly a significantly different end product? Does it make it a different chocolate chip cookie? No, it's still a chocolate chip cookie. I just got a few more chocolate chips than you did. Same thing with your compliance department. And the last bullet that I'll do for this point is the requirements. Let's go back to the requirements again. Demand, desire, proposal, regimen. When we say requirements, Normally, we're talking about like laws, United States regulations, stuff that is in writing, fine print, signed, sealed, approved by legislation. Everyone in the industry has to follow it. Not always the case 100% of the time. When we're at the table, I'll definitely give you a few examples, but sometimes when we're talking about these requirements, they come from your leadership and they feel like BS. It's definitely not a legal US regulation that you're adhering to. This is some executive or a group of leaders felt that this is the direction that the company should go in. They put it in writing, therefore it shall be. Do as I say, not as I do, sort of thing. And the compliance department would adhere to that because they work for the company and that's the company's desire or demand, and they will have people aligned to it. You see this a lot of time in manufacturing related type companies, any companies that's building a product and there's a significant quality finding. Something happens. The knee jerk reaction is to add something that at the time, if you do a true assessment and break it down, it doesn't seem value added. It seems like an overkill of a system and doesn't really address the true root cause. But they'll add something that is another step, is another layer to a process that already exists, and then make everyone be held in compliance to that. You break it down, and again, you break down the requirements, and you're like, oh, you're using unsalted butter instead of salted butter? I don't think that's right. But can't really do anything about it. That's the policy. That's what you have to be in conformity to. You got to do it. Don't get discouraged by it. It happens every industry, it happens everywhere. Where I would say 60-40, 75-25, where the majority is requirements based off of US regulations or, something real, something true. And then the smaller portion, the minority, is the wishes and desires of leadership. It's pretty much the breakdown of how you see requirements, but you will see some of those in there that's like, compliance says this is a finding and you're questioning what requirement am I not in compliance to? And it's like, okay, Bob said this is the requirement. And you're like, Bob? Okay. Like, okay. I mean, like he's the senior vice president, chief something, and they said, therefore it shall be, sort of thing. And you got to kind of eat that. And as long as it's not anything disingenuous to what you do, to the company, to your role, you just got to conform to it. The other part with compliance as well, and and this is going to be very true for cookies, the example that we're using, or if you want to use a different dessert like ice cream, the cookie one is good because you know a place I'm talking about, the 1,000-calorie cookie. It's better to have and not need than need and not have. I don't know any type of situation where you're going to need a 1,000-calorie cookie, but it's nice to have. It's nice to try every now and then. I have talked to many people that like bodybuild and they have to consume so many calories and certain grams of protein. And it's like, where do you get that from? And the stuff that they have to order in order to meet the requirement that they need to continue their building. For sweetness, there should never be a reason where you need a 1,000-calorie cookie. But in general, I mean, takeaway number 2, it's better to have and not need than need and not have. This is very true for your compliance department. If your company doesn't have one and may want to look into one, majority of moderately sized to large companies all have compliance departments. And it's one area that I won't say is completely layoff proof, but kind of closer to the spectrum of layoff proof than expendable. They are better to have and not need than need and not have. You do not want to put yourself in a situation where you don't know the regulations that you need to hold yourself to. And now you have to go hire an expert. The costs to do that are going to be astronomical. So, in order to avoid those very high costs, you tend to maintain a strong compliance department. And it's good to have them. You may not need 100% of their knowledge, the full spectrum of experience that they come with, but you want to have that on your docket just in case. And they're going to be able to continue to provide good information and respond to changes. When there are changes in regulation or new regulation that comes out, it has to be interpreted and it has to be put in a standard language, standard format, standard procedure that can be rolled out to the corporation for people to make conformity to. Going back to the 1,000-calorie cookie, when that cookie was first introduced, it was introduced across all the stores. There had to be some process or procedure that everyone had to follow to make this cookie. How do you know you're not making it 1,500 calories? How do you know you're not making it 500? How do you know you have the right mix of ingredients? There is requirements and a procedure that has to be followed in order to build this type of sweet. And doing that makes the output a lot more consistent across different departments. As we talked about in communication, I mean, it's hard to really get people, multiple different parties, to follow and interpret, have the input correctly and the same across the board. You gather a lot of information in order to provide the best output across the furthest reach. And when I say across, depending on the organization, I mean, you can be trying to stretch your hand and your voice across 3 people or across 30,000 people. And to get all 30,000 of those people to understand the standard that they need to be held to and the spectrum from, if we did a bell curve of where people understood the core procedure is, you want those outliers to be as small as possible. You want to narrow that spectrum as much as possible. If you're talking to 30,000, you don't want, and let's go back to the cookie, right? We need 30,000 stores to make 1,000-calorie cookie. If that spectrum is wide because people didn't interpret, didn't really follow the output that you were given in your communication, you could have only 1,000 stores making the cookie properly and all the other stores making it very wrong. It could be way off. If you have 28,000 stores that are making it properly and only 2,000 stores that are not making it properly, then you know you're doing a better job on your communication aspect and you have stronger output. People are getting the proper input. Now, that's just with communication. This, when we talk about compliance, this is actual action. This is getting people, not when you're communicating with intent to do. And that's compliance. Like this is the rule, policy that we have to follow. Everyone has to follow it consistently. And if compliance doesn't do a good job in setting those lines, they're going to be working forever. I mean, think about if they had to tell the same people or 30,000 people the same thing. 30,000 people the same thing, just different ways of saying it. Everyone made the same mistake, but all 30,000 did not understand the communication that went out of how to correct it. So now you have to tell each of them individually their own way of understanding it so that they can do it right the next time. That's not a great situation to be in. So it's tough for them too, because they're trying to do their best to address the needs of the corporation, but also ensure that everyone's on the same page. The last point that we'll get into, one thing you have to remember when dealing with your compliance department, they are human. If you're at a company in which your compliance department or your compliance function is all AI, artificial intelligence, let me know. That'll be pretty cool. I would love to talk to you and interview you about how that works. There's definitely a possibility for more AI integration into compliance, but as of right now, the majority of those people, or as far as I know, all of those people are human. The third takeaway is they are human, though. They're there as the last line of defense between you and whatever your product, paperwork, what service, whatever you are doing goes outside of the corporation. They're your last line of defense. But they are human, though. I know there's a saying of it's better to, or it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Let me tell you, when it comes to compliance stuff, no. That does not apply when it comes to compliance. For other stuff, sure. When it comes to compliance, it is not better to ask for forgiveness than permission. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble. But also, you can put a lot of risk on other people as well. To give you a really simple example, let's go back to the cookie, for example. Everyone generally likes milk with their cookies. Milk and cookies is a thing. Let's say you're having whole milk with your cookie. Let's say you're someone like me that's lactose intolerant and doesn't have a strong, you know, lactose tolerance level. Like any small glass of milk would do it for me. You have the cookie, you drink an 8-ounce glass of milk. No lactate, nothing to support the intolerance. And now your body interprets the inputs that you just gave and is now signaling you're about to get an output. And you're like, I think I can take the lactate now. Like, I'm sorry. You're trying to ask your body for forgiveness. And it's like, it's okay. We enjoyed it. It was a nice glass of milk. It was a nice cookie. We're okay. I should have took the lactate, should have got permission with the lactate, but, decided to take the risk. Depending on how sensitive your body is, and if you're someone like me, if you don't ask for permission up front, that forgiveness is going to hurt. Your body will let you know that you may be forgiven, but you're not about to forget this pain that you're about to get and this lavatory break that you're going to have to take as soon as possible to address what you didn't do the first time. I'm going to give you some output, all right? And that's how it could be in corporate America too, where you let something pass and you're thinking, oh, it got past compliance. We're good. Like, I know I made this mistake, but it's minor. And it could come back and be a very serious issue that puts not only the company exposure, but you in like serious trouble. It is not better to ask for forgiveness and permission when it comes to compliance. You really want to make sure that you are conforming, submitting, or adapting to requirements. You don't want to put, and can you imagine if it's not even like if it's a US regulation, right? That very bad. On top of that, imagine, your chief executive, senior corporate vice president has a directive and you just blatantly don't follow it. You're kind of putting a glass ceiling on your head of like not being a team player and not really adapting to where the company's trying to go. You don't want to do that to yourself. At the same time, compliance, they're human. They make mistakes sometimes. They are the last line of defense mostly, but they will make mistakes sometimes and they won't catch everything. That's why there are audits. That's why there are reviews to ensure that they're kind of double checking themselves because there's not really a true double check to compliance. We kind of pay them as like, hey, you are my double check, and I'm not going to have an endless loop of paying double checkers. We're not going to pay someone to double check the double checker and then pay someone else to double check the double checker that's double checking the double checker. Not going to do that. One line, you, and one double checker. Compliance. That's it. Some stuff will leak through, and that's risk to the company. Obviously, we want to minimize that risk as much as possible, but some stuff comes out. I mean, we're human. Going back to the cookie, we want 1,000 calorie cookie. Some cookies get out there and they may be I'm exaggerating, but they could be 2,000 calories. That, depending on where it goes, it could be a serious issue or it could not be a serious issue, but it just happens sometimes. Um, there might be a specialty cookie where it's supposed to be 6 chocolate chips on there because it's for, let's call it a birthday party. Someone's 6th birthday party. It's supposed to be 6 chocolate chips on every cookie. One cookie got 7. It got made. It got checked. But yet, a 7th chocolate chip showed up on this cookie for someone's 6th birthday. Is it detrimental to the whole operation, to the birthday party, for one out of, let's call it, the 30 cookies to look like that? May not even notice it. Or they may notice it. It becomes a big deal. They blow up about it. They call your store. They make a huge complaint. It could be, right? It's just a risk that exists. And we're human. I mean, we make mistakes sometimes. So don't feel bad that compliance missed it and you missed it. It happens, but do your best to try to minimize those risks as much as possible. Work with your compliance team as well as any subject matter experts. Let's go back to the tenured people that's been there forever. They have dealt with compliance for a long time, and in certain industries, it's normally the same compliance officer. So if it is, they've built up kind of a knowledge bank of what's acceptable, what this compliance officer or person will approve, that threshold, and you'll get a lot of knowledge and help on how to really interact with compliance and ensure that you have a minimum viable product to meet the requirements necessary, not only US regulatory wise, but for the company. Reach out to those tenured people, reach out to those compliance people as you can, build that relationship, build that rapport, and do the best that you can. Again, as we talked about, no one could truly understand all the requirements. So you're not in a position where it's like, hey, I'll just read all the regulations and read all the policies and I'll just know it. And it's although it's your job to conform to them, it's not your job to know all of them by textbook word for word. Recognize them, yes. Know what they are, yes. Memorize them textbook word for word. I mean, that's why you have the double checkers to help you on that. Do the best that you can. Not going to be perfect. Obviously, in some fields like the medical, well, yes, they're going to have to know it word for word, and they're going to have to pay very close attention to every single minute detail that industry calls for it. Finance, probably not to the level that the medical field needs. Aerospace and defense, definitely in between, probably closer to the medical. If we're talking like nuclear, definitely closer to the medical, and consumer products, probably in between, closer to the finance, in between like aerospace and finance, but closer to the finance of the spectrum. But overall, you're supporting. You know as much as you can. You gain as much knowledge as possible, and you're supporting because they're the last line of defense. You're the first. You're the first line of defense. You're the defensive line here. Are they going to get through or are they not? Did the running back get a clear hole and now he can just go through and it's up to the secondary to stop the touchdown? Or are you going to be able to stop it? You have to be that first line of defense. So bulk up as much as possible, but understand you're not going to be perfect. In addition, I will tell you one last thing in regards to your compliance department. It is a function that people normally make a whole career out of. It's not necessarily one of those areas that sees a lot of movement, a lot of transitioning of people that, hey, I'm going to go do compliance for 2 years and then take another job. Usually, people who work in compliance tend to stay in compliance, and most of them make a whole career out of compliance. So they know their stuff. It's not too many people that have over 10 years of experience in compliance and they don't know anything. they typically do know their stuff and they're a subject matter expert in the area. So trust them. I know sometimes when you get into the work, you're like, well, if you send it to person A, they're going to reject it because they reject everything. But if you send it to person B, we're going to get approved and we're going to be able to get this company moving. There are going to be scenarios like that. Be careful with those. I mean, that doesn't mean that person A doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't have the skill set or the subject matter expertise to be able to execute. It's more so a reflection of, honestly, the team of, hey, you know that person A has a very strict review and either someone hasn't provided a minimum viable product through that person, or we truly don't understand the policy and procedures that we need to get through. And don't get me wrong, I know there's those people that just will reject everything just to reject it, inspect to reject instead of inspect to accept. Got it. At the end of the day, there is something that they're going to have to pass. I mean, if we're in the bakery and you reject every cookie, and you will never sell cookies. Got to approve a cookie at some point. You know, you don't like that the cookie has 7 chocolate chips and needs 6 chocolate chips. Got it. That's an easy fix. But if it has 6 chocolate chips and you're saying, I don't like how big that one looks, that one chocolate chip looks like different in comparison and in proportion to the other 5. Okay. Yeah. Tit for tat there. But in general, if it's something minute like that, don't trust your compliance department, make the changes, let it ride, and be the supportive anchor for that department that's really watching your back. So we'll get ready to wrap this up. Again, compliance, best worst thing ever when it comes to the functions and corporate America. They're there to be your double checker. Key takeaways that we talked about. Number 1, no one truly knows all the requirements. Everyone does the best that they can. It's a lot of interpretation based, and they're trying to standardize it across the whole company so that everyone has the same interpretation. It's just a hard thing to do the larger the company you get. 2, better to have and not need than need and not have. Obviously, when it comes to compliance departments across every industry, any large corporation is going to have it. Medium size will definitely have it. When it gets to like smaller companies, it's hit or miss, but depending on the work that they do and the industry that they're in, they're going to have it. You don't want to be in certain industries and not have a compliance expert to make sure that you are in compliance. Again, that you conform, submit, or adapt to all the desires, demands, proposals, regimens that are required. You got to be in conformity to it. And 3rd, just like you and I, we're all human. I hope this ages well. I imagine like this podcast in 5 years and all compliance are just robots and AIs that are checking everything. That would age this podcast poorly. But for as of now in 2025, it's 90% like human beings. So we're human. We make mistakes as human. Sometimes we're 100% good. Sometimes we're 99.9. In reality, we probably strive for that 100%. And we're more likely hitting like 97.8. 100% is like really, really hard to do, but we strive for it. We try to get to perfection because that's what's expected of the world. When we thrive, we're not shooting for 90% thriving. We're shooting for 100% thriving. And I know you can do that. And with that, we'll turn off this stove, take off the thinking apron, and let's just say the dishes will get done later. This topic wasn't a big mess, but if we learned something today, then we know there's a little cleaning up to do. I do want to talk this topic more, maybe trade stories about this soon, like this Thursday soon. I hope to see you there. Thanks for being in the corporate kitchen today. I'm your host, Tiger. Until next time.